Probably the most important part of any story, news, feature, or opinion is the lead. The lead is the first sentence, or maybe two, of your story. It's usually fewer than 30 words, and often closer to 20. Along with the headline, your lead paragraph is your reader's first impression of the story. If it's long, clunky, or boring, your readers will move on to something more interesting. So make your lead a good one that grabs your reader's attention. Leads contain some combination of the 5 W's and 1 H, as they tell the reader what the story is going to be about, and whether the reader wants to continue reading. Now let's take a look at this lead and identify the 6 questions. A man wielding a rubber-tipped cane robbed a Columbia bakery Sunday evening after threatening to, quote, whack a sales clerk. Who would be the man wielding a rubber-tipped cane? What? He robbed the place. When? The crime took place on Sunday evening. Where is the Columbia bakery? The why is not apparent. And how? By threatening to, quote, whack a sales clerk. Now, as you can see, sometimes you can answer a question in your lead, or sometimes you can't, and you might not even be able to answer it in your story. On the next slide, see if you can answer and dissect the lead on your own. So how did you do? You might have assumed the why was because of the weather, but remember to not make any assumptions. The man could have been suffocated or had a heart attack, in which case the temperature had nothing to do with his death. You might not have a cause of death yet, so it's important not to assign one before the police or the coroner does. Since the lead is so important, we're going to spend some time going over some more examples found in the Hicks textbook. Now, most leads focus on the who or the what question. You want to ask yourself whether the focus is on the person or on what the person did. If the person is a celebrity or other well-known figure, who they might be more important than what they did. Now, the who is only named in the lead if it's a prominent name that readers will recognize. Otherwise, you get what's called the A person lead. A Durham Tech student was awarded a full tuition scholarship. A Raleigh man is in critical condition, or a Chapel Hill accountant lost their job. They will be identified later in the story, because who they are is not as important as what happened to them. And here are a few more tips on writing your lead paragraph. Keep leads to one point rather than two. The main cause of clutter in a news lead is trying to say too much. Keep it tight and focused. Fewer than 30 words, remember, to encourage your audience to keep reading. Use specific rather than general statements. Are you reporting something as a fact or reporting what someone said? Attribute any claims in the lead. Don't say that Facebook rots the brain, but say who it is that's making the claim. Finally, you can use narrative style in your lead. Borrowing from storytelling, these leads are mini stories that have a beginning, middle, and end. They name their main characters, trying to get the reader involved with their story and what happens to them. There are also a few leads that you want to avoid. First is the topic lead. The Durham City Council met today. Yeah? So what? Topic leads typically convey no actual news. It doesn't matter that the City Council met, only what they did or decided on. My least favorite question lead is did you know? Either you did or you didn't, but it doesn't matter anyway because you're going to know in a minute. Question leads are just weak, irritating stalls when you can't think of anything better. And quote leads are the third on the chopping block list. They often don't fairly summarize the story and can be opinions rather than facts. News stories are typically structured using what's called the inverted pyramid style. The most important information, your who, what, when, where, why, and how, is found at the top of the pyramid. Now, as you move down, you add supporting information and key quotes. Then add additional facts, information, and quotes. Then maybe you'll include some background information. Then more details. And more details. And even more details to finish out the story. Now, the purpose of the inverted pyramid is to stack the most important parts of the story at the top and continue down in descending order of importance. News is written so readers can stop reading when they've satisfied their curiosity, without worrying that important information is being held back. Now, it's also written that way so that copy editors can quickly trim a story to fit the available space without cutting something important. If you need to cut 4 paragraphs from a story so it will fit in the newspaper, an editor then doesn't need to reread the whole story to find the least important details. They are always at the bottom. These scissors represent places that the copy editor could cut the story if needed. Now, Hicks has some really great examples of news structure in the textbook, so be sure to read them. Finally, we're going to talk a little bit about news style. Journalists use Associated Press style, which means they follow a strict set of guidelines for how words should appear in stories. Now, the handout accompanying this week's lecture gives some AP style basics. We're going to talk about a slightly different style here, though. The first is variation. Now, it's okay to use the same word multiple times in an article. Once you call a spade, you don't have to call it a gardening tool, a digging device, or a horticultural implement. Just keep calling it a spade. Now, speaking of using the same word over and over, in general, use the word says or said when attributing quotes. There's no need for fancy synonyms like stated, reported, admitted, explained, quipped, or opined. Just use said. Now, whatever tone you decide to take, be consistent throughout the story. Don't start something serious and then switch to light and funny halfway through. In general, stories do not need bridges or links to connect one paragraph with the next. Words and phrases like also and in addition are largely unnecessary. Every field has jargon, special words or expressions that are used by a particular profession or group and are sometimes difficult for others to understand. Phrases like sustained injury, slated, hammered out, kicked off are typically not used in regular conversation and shouldn't be found in your journalism stories as well. Journalistic convention says to use the individual's full name, then use either the first name, or last name with a courtesy title, like Mrs. Smith. Now, in our textbook, Hicks says that whatever you use, be consistent. I'm going to correct Hicks here and say to only use the last name on second reference. Notice I said Hicks, not Winford or Mr. Hicks. The only time you would use someone's first name is if the person is under 18, or if you need to differentiate between two people with the same last name in the same story. Finally, we'll end with the ending. Now, most news stories just sort of end, either because the writer ran out of time or the copy editor ran out of space. Bruce De Silva of the Associated Press told participants at the 2001 Narrative Journalism Conference that a good ending must do 3 things. Tell the reader that the story is over. Nail the central point of the story to the reader's mind. And finally, it should resonate. De Silva said, you should hear it echoing in your head when you put the paper down, when you turn the page. It shouldn't just end and have a central point. It should stay with you and make you think a little bit.